Here's a story. There's a lot of versions of the story, but this is the way I heard the story. There was a young man, this is the days of the Rebbe Rashab, Rebbe Sholem Dovber, about 100 years ago, a little more. And there was a young man that he had been religious and he left Yiddishkeit, left Judaism. He became a communist or whatever it was. And his friends took him in. This is the beginning of the days of communism. So his friends, it was with all these non-Jewish friends. They were always drunk all the time, and he left Torah, left the commandments, left everything, and he became in the Communist Party. He started sort of raising up in the ranks. Anyway, his father was going crazy. His father was a Chassid Chabad, and he wanted his son to come back to Judaism, but he didn't know what to do. So finally, in the end, somehow or other, he worked out with his son that he would go in to see the Rebbe Rashab, Rebbe Sholem Dovber. And that's the father of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he would go in. He said he's only going to go in if he can bring his friends with him. So they went in. They did it. They got drunk. They went into the Rebbe's room. He let him in the Rebbe's room, he and 4 or 5 of his friends. And as soon as they saw the Rebbe's face, his friends, they sort of sobered up. But he, a little bit, but he was already used to it. He was already Chabad. He knew the whole thing. So the Rebbe just looked it up and he said in Russian, on niet, on niet, on niet. Him, no. Him, no. Him, no. And that's it. And the Rebbe put his head back down, or he started reading a book, and they understood that was the end. That was the meeting. They backed out of the room, went into the hall, and burst out laughing. And they were pointing at him, on yet, him, no. This is a great rabbi. That's all he has to say. They were laughing and scoffing, and they left. I think this was even after the Rebbe passed away, because the Rebbe passed away very early in the history of communism. He passed away in 1920. Meanwhile, this young man, he rose up in the ranks of the Communist Party. And he became a big official, and he had power. And of course, he left Judaism totally. It was not just out of the question, that he was going to do anything Jewish. There was no, the Jews were the losers. He was the winner. And one day he got an invitation to come in for interrogation. Now, when a person in communist Russia, you got a note to come in for interrogation, that pretty much meant a death sentence. Stalin, Yamach Shamo, he made all these purges. And anyone in the Communist Party or in the government or in the army that he suspected in any way might become an enemy to his power, as he would have them arrested and killed. They say that Stalin had killed up to 50 million people, of his own people, like this. And he was worshipped by everyone. Everybody loved him. Stalin, he only killed bad people. That's what he had everyone convinced. Anyway, our hero, he got this letter and he knew what it meant. He knew what it meant. If they wanted him to come down to interrogation, it wasn't an innocent thing. And so he knew also that there were spies everywhere. He didn't dare leave his house with a suitcase or anything like that. And so he left his house just like regular, didn't even take unusual amount of money or anything like that, because if they stopped him and asked, where's all this money, where are you going? They would take him, So he left his house regular, like all the other times, went out of his house like he was going to buy a pack of cigarettes or something like that. And he, I guess maybe he put a change of clothes underneath his clothes, whatever he did. And he went to the bathroom, changed his clothes, left the place, went behind the walls and jumped through yards and places like that. He already knew where, who was watching him. He somehow or other got got on a train, and he escaped. He went to some town, and because he didn't want anybody to know him, he couldn't wander around, so he went into the shul and he went to sleep. And little by little, he started frequenting this shul more and more. And he began growing a beard because he didn't want anybody to recognize him. And his hair, and eventually got another change of clothes, and he started dressing like a religious Jew. And he was already from his youth, he knew what Torah and mitzvahs were. So he was in the thing. Now he was totally confused. He didn't really know exactly what to do. He was afraid to ask for charity because in the shuls, also there were spies. So he had to move from shul to shul all the time. He had to keep moving all the time wherever he was. And he had to beg for money or whatever. They did odd jobs. And finally, one day, with all of his wandering around, he went into a restaurant. He was sitting in a restaurant. And he was drinking a cup of tea. It was raining outside. It was cold, whatever. He came in. And suddenly he sees two soldiers. He looks through the big window, the window of the restaurant. He sees there's two soldiers, and they're looking at a picture. And they're discussing and pointing to him. So finally they go in. These two soldiers go in. They draw their guns. They come up to him. And they say, "You're under arrest. You're such and such a person." Suddenly, from the door bursts in their commander of these two soldiers, two policemen. And the commander says to them, "Where have you been? You two drunken bums. I've been looking for you all day. Why weren't you on your post? Why didn't you come in? You've been drinking. I can smell the vodka on your breath. You've been drinking again, you bums." And they say, no. Look, here we have a picture. This is him. We caught him. We caught this person. The commander grabs the picture and he looks at it and he says, "On net. On net. On net. Him? Nah. Him? No. Him? No." Exactly the language of the Rebbe Rashab. And he takes the two policemen and starts hitting them and knocking them and grabs them both outside. Suddenly, this young man realizes that this is what the Rebbe was saying. That the Rebbe was giving him there's another thing that he was a big professor anyway, that beforehand. In any case, he realized that this is what the Rebbe was saying. Either the Rebbe was giving him a blessing, or he was prophesizing, or the Rebbe caused this to happen. But whatever it is he totally changed himself, went back to Lubavitch. I guess maybe it wasn't in Lubavitch anymore. Then Chabad was already in Rostov or wherever it was, and he became a Chassid Chabad.